everybody. I'm Vicky Parhampton, and welcome to Tag Team Tales of Terror, where another horror author and I work together to create something short and diabolical. Today, I've tagged Leigh Kenny. Leigh is the acclaimed author of many short stories and novellas, along with the novels Cursed and Hush, My Darling, which is a Books of Horror indie brawl contender. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I know that was kind of brief. Like, what did I miss about your introduction?
No, you didn't miss anything because I keep doing short stories. I do have Hush and I do have Cursed, but I keep doing short stories because I love them. So I'm a little bit behind. I need to catch up and release more full length stuff myself.
That's how I feel. I've been writing so many short stories this year that I have a novel. It's like a third of the way through, and I'm like, eh.
Yeah, I'm like, I keep saying, oh, just one more, just one more. And then, then I'm focusing on my stuff. And then it's like, do you want to do this one, Leigh? Yeah, sure. Sounds great. So
Same.
eventually, I'm not very good at managing my time either. So
Eh.
eventually, I've been saying eventually for the past 37 years. It might stick someday.
Well, let's get to the rules for this game. So, Tag Team Tales of Terror is a progressive story. So, you and I will alternate telling bits of the story until we reach some sort of satisfying conclusion. We each get 30 seconds. I will wave this to let you know when it's my turn when to switch. But I'll also have a handy timer in the corner. And then
Okay.
I will have a prompt from this hat that I will draw to get us started. And since you're my guest, you get to go first, which I
Oh,
think that's the
yeah.
harder job, so I'm sorry. And if you want like a pen and paper to jot things down, that's totally cool.
Just in
Perfect.
case.
Just in case. We're aiming for about 10 minutes, but if we go longer, that's fine. If we go shorter, also fine. We just want a good story. And then after putting you through all of that, I have a little surprise for you.
Oh, yay.
Okay. Any questions before we get started?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
Time to draw from the hat.
Oh, God.
Okay. Let's see what we got here. Wandered too deep into the woods.
Mm, okay.
And
So,
when you're ready, I'll press start. So are you ready to just go?
yeah, well, like, I mean, it's the woods. There's a lot you can do with it. And
A lot you can do with it.
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start the timer, and then whenever you're ready.
Okay. So I was out walking one day, looking for inspiration for a story. And I was in the woods because it was a nice day. But I started to notice the light changing because I was getting a little too deep. At first, I thought the day had gone past me, but no, I'd just gone deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods. And then I noticed a trail of smoke through the trees, a small break in the trees above me. I saw the smoke.
And I decided to walk towards it because I could smell something cooking and it smelled great. And since I'd been walking so long and I hadn't packed any food, thought maybe I'll share a campfire, share a meal with whoever's there. And I got closer to the campfire and the smell started to change. It no longer smelled just like roasting meat. It smelled acrid and burned, and I wondered what could possibly be going on there. And the next thing I knew, I had entered a clearing, and that's when I saw what was there.
So there was a spit over a fire, but there was nobody around. There was a ragged old tent sitting there. And when I looked around a little more behind the trees ahead of me, I could see the outline of a shack or something similar. Um, the meat that was hanging on the spit, it didn't look like anything I'd ever seen before. And it smelt, meaty, but also a little bit sweeter than you'd expect.
And I took a step closer, wanting to see if maybe I could have dinner after all. And then I called out into the empty clearing. I said, "Hello, is anybody there? I'd love to share dinner. I'd love to share some warmth from this fire." And I waited, and nobody answered. But I could tell from the meat still on the spit that somebody must be around, and something had clearly interrupted them. And I could see that the meat was starting to burn. And I thought, whoever's there will definitely appreciate it if I just step in, if I take this off the fire so that they don't ruin their dinner.
So I did exactly that. I took the meat off the spit, and even though it was a little burned, I gotta say, I was hungry. I had forgot to pack food. It did kind of, hit my senses, tickle those taste buds. So I said, I'm sure they wouldn't mind me taking a little sliver, just a bit, just enough to fill me. So I started to slice the meat, and I put some in my little tub, and I sat down by the fire.
And I started to take the first bites and it tasted different. I couldn't quite place. I didn't know if it was rabbit or if it was squirrel or some other forest creature. And I was just starting to dig in and get used to the flavor when I heard a voice call out and say, "Who's there? Who is that? Why are you eating my food?" And I jumped up, still clutching my dinner, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I was just walking through the woods when I came across your fire and I didn't want your meat to get burned. So I decided to go ahead and start eating it."
The person still didn't show themselves at first. So I kind of waited, and then I noticed this person coming from the tent or movement from the tent. And a person came out. He was wearing like an apron, and it looked stained. And the closer he got to me, it was still quite dark because we're deep in the woods, you know. I thought, is that blood stains? But then I thought, of course, it's blood stains because he's after been, chopping up his meat to put on the spit, the meat that I'm eating right now.
And as he got closer, I tried to make conversation because he wasn't really saying anything beyond that. And I just said, I'm really, really sorry. If you want me to go, I can go. But I'd love to know what kind of meat this is. This is a delicious recipe. Could I have it? I didn't even know what I was saying. I was just rambling because at that moment, I noticed that there was a knife by his side and it was glinting in the firelight. And I started to wonder if those bloodstains were from something bigger than a deer.
So he smiled at me and he said, thank you for taking it off the spit. Of course, I don't mind sharing it with you. The recipe, though, it's a family secret. I'd rather not share that with you. So he put the knife down and he cut some slices for himself and sat next to me by the fire. And he asked me, what brings you to the woods? What brings you so deep into the woods? It's rare that I do see people in this area.
And I said, "Oh, I was just out hiking. I was really interested in taking a walk. And as I walked around and got deeper and deeper, I just got lost in thought. And that's how I wound up here. And, I'm so happy that I met you because I was starting to wonder if I was getting lost." And the man looked at me and said, "Oh, so nobody's told you about the stories? Nobody ever comes this deep in the woods because they're all too afraid." And I said, "Afraid? I've never heard anything. I'm kind of new to the area." And the man said, "Well, let me tell you a story."
So he tells me that apparently there's a history of cannibalism in those woods. There's backwoods folk who supposedly live there, deep in the forest where nobody can find them, and they eat people. And I was like, no, you're joking. I said to him, well, do you live here? Have you ever seen them? And I continued to stuff the meat in my mouth. It was really so tasty. But I was like, have you seen anything? Can you tell me any more?
And he said, "Well, I've never met them myself." And he kind of chuckled as he said this, which made me a little bit uncomfortable, but he probably had grown up with these stories and knew that they were fake. So he said, "Oh, I've done my share of wandering and I've never seen anything like that. You really shouldn't worry. But it's getting really late and I'm sure you don't have time to walk all the way back out of the woods to home. Do you want to just stay here for the night? I'm happy to have the company."
So I said, you know what? After sitting down for walking so long, I actually did kind of want to accept his invitation. So I was like, I don't mind staying. If you're okay with sharing the meat, I'm okay with sharing the company. Would you mind showing me where I'd be staying? Maybe do you have a bathroom? And he waved his hand around. He said, the world is your bathroom out here. But sure, come with me. Come inside the cabin. Let me show you where you'll be sleeping.
So I followed him across into the little shack, and when he opened the door, I saw it was really just one room. There was a little cook stove, there was a corner where there was a curtain pulled around a bed, and there was a chair and a table, and that was really it. But I thought, you know what, this is much better than walking home through the dark. That really wouldn't be safe anyway. And even though I didn't believe the stories about the cannibals, I was a little scared. It was very, very dark in the woods, and I was getting honestly extremely tired. So I accepted his invitation and I decided I'd just sleep on the floor.
So on the way back out of the cabin, I heard shouts from behind, from the area behind the wooded area. And I said, well, what is that? I was a little startled, especially after the scary stories he'd been telling me. And he said, well, come over here and I'll show you. So we walked around the cabin and it was fairly heavily wooded. And I noticed there was like something with a tarp thrown over it. So he went and he lifted the tarp and there was a cage underneath it. with a person inside.
And I said, oh my gosh, what is this? What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, a lot of stories around here are not real. And a lot of what they've said about me isn't true. But I got to tell you, my new friend, one of those things is true. There really are cannibals in these woods. But don't worry, don't worry. Now that you've tasted the meat, you can become one of us. There's no need for me to put you in this cage." Then he looked at me and squinted and said, "Is there?"
And when I looked at the person in the cage, they, to be honest, they looked a bit rough around the edges. And I said to him, like, "Did you just find this person at random? Is this just a random hiker? Like, what's your reason?" And he said, "Well, no. To be fair, I'm a cannibal with a purpose. So it's only when I see people doing things wrong, like this guy, he was killing animals, a protected species. We won't talk about what kind of protected species, but he was killing a protected species. So maybe he deserved it. What say you?"
I said, "Well, I've always been an animal lover, and we really can't have that. And honestly, I mean, I don't really want to eat a fluffy bunny or a sweet little deer. So this guy, he kind of seems terrible. So you know what? That meat was truly delicious, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life not eating that. So what the hell? Let's dig in." And the guy smiled at me, and I thought, you know what? I am always amazed at how close I am to becoming evil. I'd never realized it before.
So he says to me, "Well, obviously, just to prove, I need to know that like you're actually in. So he says, he pulls the knife out that he had been holding before, and he said, "Here, what's your cut? What's your cut of choice? What would you like?" And I thought to myself, you know what? I like that meat so much that maybe I want to make sure I've got a good supply. So quick as a wink, I slit his throat.
And it took him a moment to die. He was a big man, and blood spurted out all over the grass and all over the man in the cage and all over me. And it got all over my mouth. I licked my lips. I looked at the man in the cage and I said, "This is your lucky day." And the man looked so excited. He clearly thought he was going to die. And I went to go unlock the cage with the keys I pulled out of the man's pocket. And when I opened the cage, the man inside looked at me a little strangely. I expected him to run out, but he didn't.
And he said to me, "Was it really that good? Like, is the meat that tasty?" Because he actually did make me the same offer. I didn't do anything wrong. He was telling you lies. And I said, "Well, come and try the meat if you want. Like, come join me by the fire. We'll slice you off some. Don't think you're off scot free here, because you're not. You're just getting a little taste. Meat's mine. But come ahead." So we walked back around the building and towards the fire, and I cut some slices off and handed them to him.
And he didn't enjoy them quite as much as I did, but by the time that the meat was all gone, I was tired, I was sated, and I fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, the man was gone, but I realized that I had become a forest man now. There was nowhere else I'd rather be, and maybe it was my destiny to stay here in the forest and take over the mission of the cannibal I had killed.
The end.
The end.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
was
you
fun.
can't build on that. You've become the mountain person or the forest person. That's perfection right there.
I agree. And well, we have to come up with a title for this.
Well, let me tell you, it was very difficult for me not to bring my own book into this with all the, cannibals and people in the middle of the woods. So,
Mm.
yeah, we won't call it Hush My Darling. Oh, what do we call it? Hmm, forest feasting.
Forest feasting. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, writing it down. That's the title. What do you think? That was fun, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because one of the very first stories, short story, of course, that I ever had published was a cannibal one, and it keeps popping up for me. The cannibals just keep popping up for me. I love to read about them. Apparently, I love to write about them and make them up. Like, maybe it's time I just went into the woods and done this. You know what I mean? Maybe it's
Why
my
not?
time for that forest feasting.
Can't knock it till you try it, right?
Yeah, this is it. Like, I'm not even a big meat eater, but you know what? People suck.
Well, speaking of meat eating, I'm pretty hungry after all of that. I don't know about you, but I figure it's time for the surprise. You've earned
Oh,
it.
yes.
So
Okay.
I have created a recipe based off of Cursed just for you.
Oh, awesome.
So Cursed gave boxes a pretty terrible reputation. So I wanted to vindicate the humble box a little bit. So I call this recipe the Curse Cure Bento Box, and it's chock full of really delicious food. Obviously, you can put whatever you want in a box, but for mine, I put hard-boiled eggs with everything bagel seasoning, do some grapes, some hummus, some cucumbers, carrots, cheese, and nuts. And then, because of course there's still some darkness here, I put some dark chocolate in there for dessert. And trust me, this box is so good, it'll cure any curse you've got.
Well, you would want to hope that you don't find any hair in there.
That would really ruin it. Yes.
It would, and to be fair, the hair really ruined things for cursed too. You know,
In the book,
sometimes you
in
think
the
finding a
food.
hair in your food is the worst thing that can happen to you. Sometimes it's not.
Sometimes it's not. That very
No,
well said. Yes.
I think I've
But
kind of just put myself off eating now.
well, that maybe that's good, right? I mean, we talked about cannibals and hair and food. This is not a very appetizing episode.
And no, it's not, but it's good for the soul.
Yes. Well, I will be putting this recipe in the show notes for anybody who wants to cure their curses during a reading binge. So thank you so much for doing this with me. I hope it wasn't too
Thank you for
scary and
having me. No,
or
it was,
anything to be
I was
nervous.
so stressed beforehand, but I'm so happy I did it. And I feel like very accomplished for having done it. And the fact that we got to talk about cannibals, it's great. What more could you ask for?
Everybody's always so nervous before this. I'm like, we're just talking. I know it seems really intimidating, but I've never had anybody bomb ever.
Yeah. And to be fair, like if there's one thing I can do, it's just talk and talk and talk. So,
That is a benefit. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
oh, I'm a big pantser, which
Mhm.
I watched Ben's episode and I was very intrigued to see because I know Ben is always been such a self-prescribed plotter. So
Mhm.
whereas I can't plot for the life of me. I tried to plot with Push My Darling and it went way out the window. So
Mhm. I did the same. I've tried to plot and it just never works
you
out. I need
pantser
like
too.
I am. I think so. I
Yeah,
have like a loose
I
idea of where I
find
want things to go.
I find if I plot, it kind of contains me too much,
Mhm.
and I need to just go wild with stuff. I need to be able to just go, ooh, what's that shiny thing over there? Let's investigate.
That's
It's a man
exactly
in the
how I am.
woods.
Yes, I find that a lot more fun. I mean, plotting is
Yeah,
like great if you want to write really fast and really, I guess, efficiently, but I feel like it loses the
efficient is the
sparkle.
word. Efficient is not a word people would use to describe me. So
Yeah, I'm glad I'm back in the realm of pantsing. It's working much better for me.
yeah,
And
pantsing
this is all
is.
pantsing. This exercise is all pantsing.
Yeah, so I suppose you see, I think for me it's the because I'm ADHD, so it could go either way. I can be super focused and be like, yeah, let's do this, or I can be like, oh, what's that? Oh, sorry, what were you saying? So it's always fun to see what could happen. But
Absolutely.
I survived.
You
So
did. You thrived. You didn't just survive, you thrived.
yeah, now I live in the woods. Fun.
Yes. Eating people. It's the best. That's the
Who
life,
doesn't
right?
want that? I mean, I have peaked in life.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Can you tell everybody where they can keep up with you and your work?
I am a troglodyte, so there is no website, there is no newsletter, but I am working on these things. So people can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on Blue Sky. I don't really be on Blue Sky much, so I forget I have it. But Facebook and Instagram, and it's just Leigh Kenny. So
Awesome.
if you go on to Leigh Kenny and it's a regular page, there'll still be a link there to get to my author page. So, and I spout all kinds of stuff on there.
Yeah, you're very funny.
You see, I'm very me. I'm not very good. I know some people are able to kind of create a professional version of themselves and keep them separate, but I don't have the wherewithal to do that. So
I don't think I really do that either. I just
yeah, no,
am.
I am my messy self
Mhm.
everywhere on all my pages and my profiles.
That's the best, though. That's what people want.
Well, it is. It means people know what they're getting.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you don't
Well,
like this, you're not gonna like anything I do in future. It only gets worse from here.
well, thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you, and I really appreciate you
You
doing this with me.
too. Hopefully, we'll meet in person in the future.